The Wonderful World of Darklords. Report 18. The Seeonee. Even though the Seeonee has its share of foggy patches, there was no question of when I emerged from the mists and entered the jungle. The cold, clammy tendrils became humid steam, so thick that I felt almost as though I were swimming rather than walking, and suffused with the heavy golden light of sunset. The eerie silence of mist travel gave way to a cacophony of sounds: the hooting of birds, the buzzing and chirping of insects, the idiot chatter of monkeys. When the mist cleared, I found myself in a scene of breathtaking natural beauty, a rainforest of such brilliant green that it almost seemed to glow in the evening light, with towering trees and lushly flowered undergrowth. Across a broad river, I could see the first flickering fires as the little village prepared for the oncoming night. I took a step toward the village and felt my foot sink into the soft earth. Looking down, I saw a paw print larger than my head. It came from a tiger larger than any I had ever heard of. The hair on the back of my neck stood up, and I stopped, listening for any sounds that might indicate the maker of that massive print was nearby. After a few moments passed, I breathed more easily, but found I could no longer fully enjoy the jungle's beauty. As magnificent as it was not for me, nor for any human. The jungle belonged to the animals, and they would fight to keep it that way. The Lord. Having little experience with the wilderness, I proceeded to the village and hired a guide, a young woman named Priya. Priya explained that she was planning an expedition to the jungle to hunt for tiger pelts. An enormous tiger, as large as a draft horse and as intelligent as any humanoid, stalked the jungle, killing anyone with the temerity to walk in on two legs. This tiger, called Shere Khan, had a scarred face and a blinded left eye. Many of the village's hunters boasted that they or their parents were the ones responsible for his injuries, but none of those claims had any ring of truth, and I saw many surreptitious eye rolls from the friends and family of these hunters. A human had almost certainly given him those scars, for they were clearly burns. Whoever burned him, however, was no longer in the village, and doubtless did it as a final act of defiance. In an effort to rid themselves of Shere Khan's shadow, the village had placed a sizable bounty on tiger skins, and thus Priya hoped to make her fortune. I was puzzled at first, for deadly animals seemed commonplace in the Seeonee. Other villagers had told tales of wolves, panthers, disease-bearing insects, even a python large enough to swallow a grown man whole. Despite these manifold dangers, the entire village was adamant. The great tiger Shere Khan was more dangerous than any of them. Other creatures in the jungle killed for food. Shere Khan's victims were often found mauled, but uneaten. He killed for power, and his appetite for it could never be sated. The land. The Seeonee contains a variety of landscapes: grasslands filled with water buffalo, blighted wastelands patrolled by vultures, and tremendous rocky cliffs framing lush river valleys. However, it is often referred to simply as the jungle, for reasons that become obvious after spending any length of time there. The massive trees and tangled underbrush seemed to stretch for eternity, and without my guide I would quickly have become lost, if I were not devoured by native wildlife first. We stumbled upon the shed skin of that massive python, and if anything, the villagers had understated its size. Priya warned me that if we met it, I must never look at it directly, for fear of its mesmeric gaze. I caught glimpses of enormous wolves gliding silently between the trees, but thankfully, they seemed to have no appetite for man-flesh. At one point, I heard a riot of hooting and chattering in the trees above me, and Priya pointed out the monkeys filling the canopy. Some perched high above us, others hanging from one arm with the other dangling low as though to catch us. She called them the Banderlog, and told me we would have to make a small show of force to frighten them away. Otherwise, they would snatch us up and carry us to the ruined temple where they lived with their king, a massive ape who sought to learn the secrets of human magic and technology from kidnapped travelers. I was curious to see this temple, but being carried there by monkeys did not seem like the ideal way to visit it, so I obliged my guide with an eldritch blast. The Banderlog scattered, and Priya quickly took us down another path before they could return with reinforcements. As the Banderlog departed, Priya's eyes darted to the trees once again. I asked what she was looking for, and although she attempted to demur, I pressed the issue. She confessed that sometimes she spotted a figure in the trees that seemed at first to be a monkey, but was actually a young man. Rumors persisted that a human, perhaps a little boy, perhaps a youth on the cusp of manhood, lived within the jungle as one of the animals, but no one had ever gotten more than a glimpse of him. Priya said she believed that these sightings were made up of nothing but monkeys and overactive imaginations, but her eyes continued cutting to the trees nonetheless. The Banderlog may have had hostile intentions, but they were annoying at most. As we traveled, it became apparent that something far more dangerous was stalking us through the jungle. One moment, the air would be alive with the buzzing of insects and the calls of birds. The next, everything would go dead silent as the animals hid themselves from whatever creature was on our trail. My guide would order me to absolute stillness, and together we would peer into the foliage, weapons and spells ready for whatever lurked there. Then, slowly, the sounds of nature would return. My guide was afraid to even say his name, but we both knew that Shere Khan was hunting us, bringing our dread to a fever pitch to show us who is the true master of the Sieni. Dread possibilities. Eventually, the time came to make camp for the night. Despite the heat, Priya insisted that we make a fire. It would keep the animals at bay, and any predators it might attract would doubtless catch our scent no matter what we did. She offered to take first watch, and I settled down for an uneasy night. I will never know what possessed Priya to leave the safety of the fire. Perhaps she simply had to take care of a bodily necessity. Perhaps the Banderlog stole something and she thought that she could leave for a mere moment to retrieve it. Perhaps that python drew her away with its eyes. I do not know. All I know is that I awoke to the sound of her screams. Remembering what she had told me about the animal's fear of fire, I snatched up a burning log and followed the sound of her agonized cries. I found most of her hanging upside down from a tree, and the rest of her on the ground. Whatever killed her had not bothered to eat her. We had followed the river to her campsite, and I hoped I would be able to return to the village by following the river again, occasionally casting fly to get a bird's eye view to help guide me back. Had Priya not taken such a simple path, I would doubtless have become lost, and I wondered if she had been preparing for this possibility. As it was, I was able to stay on track, traveling as quickly as I could, always dreading the moment when the jungle would go silent again. I believe Shere Khan intentionally waited until I was almost to the village to make his move. It was more amusing to him that way. I had just flown above the trees and knew that I only had another hour or so to go. I traveled above them for as long as I could, but when the spell wore off and I descended, the massive tiger was waiting for me. Stories had not prepared me for his size. Even the sight of his paw print had not truly conveyed the power of the creature that stood before me, all tooth and claw and lean, graceful muscle. To my surprise, he spoke to me, his polite tone contrasting with his lashing tail. He informed me that I was trespassing in his jungle, but today he was in a sporting mood. He would allow me a few moments' head start before hunting me down. "If you fear that I will harm your jungle in some way, you needn't," I said. "I am only passing through, and if you allow me to leave unharmed—" The massive tiger laughed, sounding almost genial, but his tail continued to lash. "As your first, Shere Khan fears nothing," he said. "And as your second woman, if I allow you to leave, others of your kind will know that they can enter my jungle with impunity. This cannot be allowed. But, as I have said, I am a fair sport and will allow—" Cursing myself for not knowing any true fire spells, I cast Silent Image and created the orange glow of fire in the jungle to my right. Shere Khan started, and I dashed into the illusory flames. By the time he mustered the courage to follow me, I was long gone, having fled into the air where he could not catch my scent. For the rest of my journey back to the village, I remained either in flight or resting upon tree branches that could not bear a tiger's weight, occasionally blasting any monkeys that came too close. Parting thoughts. The Sieni is beautiful, but it is no place for humans. Other than Frollo's Palace of Justice, I have never had so strong a sense of not belonging in a place. Perhaps that boy who was raised in the jungle had found his place there. No one else ever would. As I entered the mists, holding a bronze spearhead as a mist talisman, I reflected that while the people of the village might live there for all their lives, the Seeonee was Shere Khan's domain, and they would always be outsiders. And that's the gospel truth. Regards, D.
I harbored suspicions that the species of the Seeonee jungle were altered through magical experimentation. However, no evidence of this nature was uncovered in my scholar's rigorous report. Unfortunate, but not altogether unexpected. After all, intelligent beasts are not unheard of in these misty realms. Indeed, accounts from the verdurous lands indicate that one region is inhabited entirely by animals that speak the tongue of man, who are lorded over by a ravenous crocodile. A king's rule is only as strong as the laws he enforces. When a king, man or beast, breaks the law of the land, he is no longer fit to rule. Beasts rarely kill for anything beyond survival. Does this Shere Khan recognize the nature of his own compulsions? That, in killing for pleasure, he is more akin to the humans he despises than the animal he rules over. I find it thoroughly amusing. The source of his disdain taunts him in the form of a child running freely through his jungle. Perhaps in time, he will have additional bipedal interlopers to further his torment. Political prisoners of Kalikari would likely find the potential protection of the Seeonee and the threat of a pyrophobic tiger practically enticing compared to Arajani's wrath.
This has been The Wonderful World of Darklords. We have no affiliation with Disney or Wizards of the Coast. All music recordings used in this episode are in the public domain and were obtained through museopen.org. Titles and links are in the show notes. Dialogue for Yensid was written by Azalin Rex himself, who you can follow on Tumblr at DarklordAzalin. The Wonderful World of Darklords logo was designed by Haylight Jones. You can find links to their work in the show notes. If you'd like to support the show, look for us on patreon.com or find our tip jar on Red Circle. Thanks for listening.